to another episode of Dish Consec. My name is Israel Bamdeli, and with me today is Mr. Samuel Gisebo, a NOC engineer with experience in network operations and cyber security. First of all, I would like to thank you for joining us today. So, how are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm glad to join on this program this evening. Yeah, it's lovely. It's been a lovely day so far, and I've been anticipating this little talk.
Yeah, same here. So, how do you feel about sharing your career journey with us?
Well, it's my first time. I'm a bit nervous, but as always, I've listened to others share their experiences, and I've often time thought a lot about me sharing my own views, and I'm happy to do so today.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice hearing that. So, anyways, my first question is, how did you how did you become interested in IT and cybersecurity?
Okay, well, it dates well back into secondary school levels. At that time, at SS3, I didn't really figure out what I wanted. There are a lot of things that I wanted to do, a lot of things that I wanted to learn, but I had a hard time figuring out my niche. So my parents at the time was like, I should just go into nursing, but I was like, that's not for me. I need to find something of my niche. And so there was this outing where I went to, and some of the people there were coders, and I just got interested in the whole coding stuff. And when I went back, I went to research back on my own, and the first I think the first coding real experience I had was with my computer studies in school. I think that time the textbooks is normally Visual Basic, that the coding that was there. So I got interested on seeing how you can use code to making computers do things, and I was like, wow, I really love this stuff. And so I started to delve down into more of coding, started doing more research, at which I came from one organization which blew my mind, and it kind of like opened the whole view, a wide range of things to me. And that organization was Sikida 3301. It was an organization that did puzzles, and so they would normally post these puzzles online, and then people from the community, from the hacking community, coding community, they would just try to solve these puzzles. And I can remember the first puzzle was on steganography, and I really loved that, seeing how clever it was to hide messages in images. And so
Yes,
it really
adding
blew my mind. Yeah.
messages into images. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's
it's
great.
Yeah, so it really blew my mind, and from there I started to have a wide mind and a wide range of view of study, and that was it. I just got fascinated by how information itself became a weapon and a shield, and then I started going deeper, learning about how nations use it to protect and defend themselves, even use it to fight other nations too. Some things that also shaped my learning career was the Cold War era, the how they figured out what the adversaries was we are doing before the adversary knew, and just stuffs like that. They built me up to. Yeah, so that's my
Wow,
origin story.
that's great. That's great. So, another question I have here. So, aside from your passion, like personal interest, were there any people in cybersecurity or tech who also inspired you along the way?
Oh yes, there were much who inspired me along the way. For technically, I didn't really have any on-site person, like anyone beside me that would say, "Okay, I encourage you to do this, do that," or someone who I could talk to. It was just me finding things on my own. And I recall that as I started delving deeper into the networking and security aspect of things, I got to love the way some people explained certain ideas, certain terminologies, and the way they just walk us through, and it will be of ease, relative ease. You understand everything, the acronyms, and you just come to love it because of the way they explain it. One of these people is Marcus Hutchins. Yeah, so I really love the way he really dealt with things. Most learning resources in this field are dry, they are theoretical and disconnected
Yes, yes.
from what actually happens when something goes wrong. But I came to realize that Marcus Hutchins tends to look at things from the real aspect,
Real world, real
from
incident.
yeah, exactly, his real world incidents, what he has planned, and what he has done, and what he has gone through. Someone who has learned by doing, made mistakes, figured things out in the heat of the moment, and I think that's how I learned best. Yeah, narrative and real incidents are how I learned best.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
okay. Another question I have here. So you currently work in knock operation and infrastructure for an
yeah,
ISP, source ports, right?
yeah. So sports communications.
Yes, yes, with multiple POPs and location like that. So can you tell us what your day-to-day works look like and how that also interest, like how that also add more interest to your cybersecurity journey?
Okay, yeah. So along the line, learning about network and security, there's what they call the foundation, then there's the
Yeah,
intermediate, and there's the advanced. And
advanced.
so I straight up delved into cybersecurity, but along the line, I experienced I was having some difficulty, you know, coming to terms with what they were really doing in cybersecurity. And so I noticed that I had missed the very beginning, the basics of it all, which is networking. Yeah. So
Yeah,
computer networking
networking
is,
is the foundation of every technology
yeah,
aspect, right?
yes, it is the foundation of everything that you want to do. So computer networking is the very basis, and I think that people who want to go into cybersecurity should learn more on computer networking. Yeah, because it is really on computer networking that these things lie. To break a network, you need to learn how it works. You
Yes.
need to know it in and out to break it. And so I realized that I was missing this, and I kind of scaled back and delved more into networking, which I'm actually loving now. So some people hear Network Operations Center, which is NOC, and think it's just keeping Wi-Fi up and running. But at the core,
Yeah,
it's really
like
about,
monitoring network like that.
yeah, yes. But at the core, some real things go down there. In fact, that's where the real shit goes down. So
Yes.
at the yeah, so at the core is protecting
You are
critical
you people
infrastructure.
are the first line of action. So if any
Exactly,
server
yeah.
is down like that,
Yeah. So it's protecting critical infrastructure, like you said, uptime, security, integrity of the network, the real business. That's what it really depends on,
yes,
the NOC. Yeah, so if a server is down somewhere, it's really the NOC that's going to be in charge of that server. You getting it, or making sure that all these things are up and running, ensuring that the protocols are right, the configurations are right, making sure that the network is fully secured, up and running. These are things that the NOC does. And when you carry this mindset, not just from an ISP like this, but you carry it to a much larger infrastructure, you discover that that's also what runs at national level. We hear of agencies like the CIA, the NSA, those big agencies, and when you eventually really delve down into these agencies, you discover that each of them has an NOC. Each of them
yes,
has
yes.
each of them has an NOC that keeps things up and running. And so it
NOC
kind of
and
made me,
SOC,
yes, exactly, NOC and the SOC,
SOC.
and it made,
Yes.
yes, the SOC. So it made me realize that, oh, I was actually going into the intermediate side of things without really actually studying the beginning, which is the very foundation, which is networking. And so I stopped a bit and focused on networking so that I can know more, and from there I can diversify really into cybersecurity.
Okay, that's great. Okay, another question I want to ask. In cybersecurity, many people like the offensive side, like ethical hacking, breaking things, penetration testing, but you seem to enjoy the defensive side more. So, what made you choose that path?
Okay, so breaking things is actually flashy. It's in fact the flashy part of cybersecurity,
Yes, yes.
and yeah, all movies, Hollywood style movies, actually, actually all movies, Hollywood style movies, even though they don't actually depict what happens in an offensive cybersecurity environment, they make it so flashy that people just
Flashy,
love that
yes.
side. Yeah, and so anyone can run an exploit, anyone can learn to run an exploit at this stage in time. But what interests me is the other sides. Rather than how you run an exploit, how do you detect this? How do you attribute it? How do you build something that doesn't fall this way again? And honestly, I think that's a more harder problem than just running an exploit. When these systems were built initially, they weren't really built on security, and so security
Yes,
was something that came later. And so these systems at the very foundation, they remain vulnerable to some things, and we can easily exploit those things. But trying to trying to properly secure a system can be way more harder than trying to break it. And so I took an interest in that part rather than pure exploitation, to be closer to what a real defense looks like day to day.
yeah, that's great. Like the Hollywood movie you say, I remembered this movie, Mr. Robot. He just hack into network within 10 seconds. They make it so flashy.
Yeah. Yes.
So another thing I
Mr.
also
Rob.
want to, okay, you can continue, sorry.
Okay, so at this point, I think Mr. Robot was also one of the movies I watched that made me had an interest in cybersecurity a lot, especially on the offensive side. I liked the way he
Yes,
really
yeah.
broke into things, and then the way that he really, broke things down fundamentally so that we get what he's doing.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So I kind of like that. And like I said, anybody can do pure exploitation, but protecting those systems on the other side of things is much harder. Yeah.
Yeah. That's nice. I also want to also add with the trend of AI now, since we are just hearing news and attacks of hackers exploiting so many vulnerabilities. So I think people should focus more on defensive side than offensive side.
Yeah, yes, that's true. Especially with the offensive side of things, AI does a lot more
A
better there
lot,
because
yes.
it does a lot more
Like the issue
better
of
there.
the cloud anthropic AI.
Yeah, very well. Yeah, that's Altropic really did a really fantastic job with its mythos model and Fable model. In fact, I was really amazed with how things
What
went.
even surprised me most is US banned the model. I was even
Yeah,
surprised that for US to be able to ban this model, that means this AI thing is getting out of hand.
yeah, sure. It's it's
So we
it's
just
really
need
getting out of hand.
more security people to give more control and granularity to these things.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we do need.
So next to my further question, we all know technology changes very fast, especially now with the AI. When you have to learn something new or have to add new skills and interest. So how do you go about it? How do you go about learning something new? Like,
Okay, how I go about learning something new. So in this field, something I'll say is new things are always going to come along. There are always going to
yeah,
be changes, and you don't just want to know how a command works. You want to know why that command works, why certain things works the way they do, and why it changes over time. And so I start from the concept underneath the particular tool or protocol that operates on. For example, when I was learning how to configure a router, in this case, this was a MikroTik router. instead of just typing the commands or learning the commands, I really wanted to understand how routing and packets flow first. Yeah, not just memorize the syntax. So it was slower upfront, but it means when something breaks in a way that no tutorial covers, you can actually fix it because you don't just understand, you don't just cram the syntax or the command, you really
Mhm.
understand how these things work, how it flows, how 1 plus 1 makes 2. Yeah, so when things flow in this order, not just you memorizing the syntax or just the command, it makes things easier for you. So I would say that when someone is learning, he shouldn't just go, okay, cybersecurity or networking is flashy, I just want to learn the flashy part. You need to go underneath, way, way underneath, understand how these protocols work. Yeah, so that's what I would advise.
Yeah, that's also great. You learn from the bottom to top.
Exactly, yes, from the bottom to top.
So another question I also plan to ask: have you ever handled a real life security incident, and how did you discover it, and what you learned from it?
Okay, so I handled a real life security incident where we had an external threat actor that was hammering our RDP, and RDP stands for Remote Desktop Protocol.
Wow.
And I discovered that this was out of a VPS in Poland. I actually caught the pattern in the logs, the failed repeated logins, and then a hit, which I then traced back to the IP, and I locked it down with a firewall rule. I changed the expose ports, yeah, and then I tightened the policy after. And this kind of small scale version of exactly this type of detection and response works.
Mhm.
um, they work, and it happens even at a much more larger scale. Yeah, so it's not really limited to the kind of company that you operate in. It can happen anywhere. It can happen anywhere. So it just takes preparation and what you know. And one thing that I also discovered is that companies tend to rely on external tools so much. They don't really
Especially
protect the network.
cracked tools.
Exactly, especially
Abi?
cracked tools. Yes, yeah. So this company was they actually use a third party tool to secure their network, which is Kaspersky. So I believe we all know Kaspersky. Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah, an
Kaspersky is
antivirus
a
solution.
yeah, it's an antivirus solution which their company is in Russia, I think, and it's kind of the best, one of the best antivirus solutions out there. But the thing with this third party is that they only block these network attacks. They don't really solve the underlying problem. For example, if you have an RODP port on and you enforce Kaspersky, Kaspersky is only going to block attack to that port. It won't close that port for you.
What?
You get? Yeah, so that's something that I came to realize that most people don't understand. They spend time and money on the tools rather than actually protecting the network itself. In that kind of scenario, all the person needed to do was to, change the exposed ports, then tighten the policy, and then this kind of things would not happen. Because
Yeah.
when a hacker scans a network from outside and he sees that, oh, this is an RDP port and it's open, he's definitely going to want to hit it. And if you have a third party to just blocking that attack, it's just going to block the attack. It's not going to solve the underlying solution, and the hacker can find another way in because he was blocked by a third party too, and he can find another way into your network that that the third party tool does not really take care of.
That's also a good lesson. So every organization should always do security review on
Yeah,
their
exactly.
firewall policies and solutions.
Yes.
Yeah. So looking back at the start of your career, was one mistake or challenge that taught you an important lesson?
Okay, so looking back at my career, it's really isn't about one mistake, but yeah, mistakes do happen, and sometimes they do compile. And one of the mistakes that I regret most is about not documenting my journey. It's about not documenting the start of my journey. Yeah, so many people say,
Yeah.
why document?
There's no
It's
evidence.
stressful. Exactly, no evidence. So you kind of explain and explain and explain, yes, no evidence. But when you're documenting the journey, it makes you know why you started your journey. So it
Yes.
makes me know why I started this my journey, and it reminds me of why I want to stay. And just like documentation helps you troubleshoot a system later, documenting my own parts, it's a big win at the times when I kind of get some things wrong. It helps me troubleshoot myself later. It shows me my motivations, my own successes, and in my own words, yeah, how I really put down things. It reminds me that even on the bad days, I can still succeed. When you document things and you look back at what you've documented, you realize that you've actually come a long way. And then this documentation will help you to improve yourself. You can be doing something and not really doing it well, but then when you go back to your documentation, you realize that, oh, this is what I missed, this is what I didn't do well, and this is what I missed, this is what I didn't do well, and it's going to help you a whole lot. So I would say that people should always document their start of their journey, because it's going to be very important for them later on.
That's true. That's true. Documentation is very, very, very important for not only visibility, but in the future you might need to attest to something, or it can also serve as portfolio in your career.
Exactly. Yes, it serves as a portfolio.
Okay, so if someone listening to you today wants to get into cybersecurity, whether red teaming or blue teaming or security operations, what would you advise them to focus on during their first few months?
Okay, so there's this hype around cybersecurity, especially that people forget the networking aspect. So there's usually this hype about cybersecurity, the very good pay, and like we said before, the flashiness of it all, breaking into things. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
nobody really talks about how to start, as in the real route to take and what it really takes. So my advice would be these inspirational versions are going to be there, but you should just forget the inspirational versions. And then cybersecurity is really, really, really boring at the very beginning. And
Yes.
honestly, you have to get good at the boring fundamentals first. If you're not good at the boring fundamentals, then you can't make it to the inspirational, flashy, you can't make it to the good part. So the boring parts, the networking, the systems, the logs, that nobody actually really wants to look at and nobody wants to really talk about because it's boring. Yeah, so you have to really focus on that. And because nobody's going to trust you with interesting problems until you've shown that you really understand the basics. If you don't understand
Yes.
these basics, it's going to be really hard out there. So know the basics, build a lab, break things, fix things repeatedly until the theory actually sticks. And when the theory sticks, then you know that you've gotten your hands dirty and you actually have something tangible to hold. So say you not only understand just the inspirational part, the flashy part, you also know the very boring details, the fundamentals, and then you also get certifications, and certifications make you get noticed a bit. They make you get noticed, but having the
Yes.
skill is what matters. Understanding is what makes you useful.
That's true. Some people just like the flashy parts, the tools, but they don't like the policies part,
Yeah.
especially the auditing part, security
At
auditing
all,
part.
yes. Yeah.
So,
That's really boring.
so what skills or areas are you currently learning, and where do you see yourself in the next 2 to 3 years?
Okay, for me now, I'm deliberately building towards the intersection of infrastructure and offensive and defensive security. Not just running the
Purple
tools,
team.
but yes, yeah. So that's the purple team area. That's the
Yeah,
purple team aspect that focus between the defensive and the
and the
offensive.
offensive. Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm not just going to be just running tools. I want to understand the attacker behavior very well to detect and explain it, and the skill that scales from there to where I am now and to where I want to be. And initially when taking this career path, I tend to notice that is when you go higher up from the civilian to the government part of things, things become really, really interesting. When you have cybersecurity merged with national security, it's kind of on a whole different level. And so I'm coming to look into that part, and so I'm building a career along national security and defense. It's going to take I think a whole lot of time, but I think it's worth
yeah, yeah. It's truly worth it.
it.
We'll be securing our future nuclear weapon.
Hope to.
Yeah. So finally, for anyone listening who feels like they are behind or who feels less motivated in their learning journey, what advice or encouragement will you give them?
Yeah, for encouragement, my dad always says that success isn't late for anyone. It's what's late is when you start. So I think the best time for the person to start is right now. No one is going to remember that you didn't start early. Everyone is always going to remember that, oh, he succeeded at last. No one is going to say, he started late, he didn't start early. And for me personally, I've been a procrastinator myself, and what helped was just starting anyway. I tend to look back and say, if I had started earlier, if I had done this, if I had done that. I know a lot of friends that they are in big places by now, and they know a lot of things than me, because I didn't start early. And so when you tend to compare yourself with others, it kills your joy, it kills everything.
Yes,
And
yes.
so I would say that you shouldn't really compare yourself to every other person. Let them do their thing, you do your own thing. Just start now. Success isn't late for anyone. So the best time to do anything is now. So you can start now and document the process so that you document the process so that in case anything happens in future, you always have something to fall back on, and you are not proving anything to anyone else. It's you, yourself, and your journey, your career journey. Yeah. So
That's
when you document,
that's
yeah,
great.
yeah. So when you document, you can actually look back at yourself and say, "Oh, this is how far I came. This is when I started, and this is what I know now." And there's a huge difference, and then that record becomes a proof of your skill, and you definitely need that on the days where you doubt yourself. So documentation and starting now are the things that I would recommend everyone to just do.
That has also motivated me.
It's a
There is
pleasure.
also something I also want to say because at times, even if I feel discouraged, I usually remember one quote like that: "A drop of water could create an ocean." So even if it's just drop of water, no matter
Yeah, no matter how small it is,
how small
when
it
you
is, yes, it
yes,
eventually becomes something.
yeah, it eventually becomes something big. That's true.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Mr. Samuel, for sharing your journey, your experience, and insight with us today. I'm sure our listeners have had a lot from this conversation. And to everyone watching and listening, thank you for joining us for another episode of Digital Sec. Don't forget to stay connected with our community. Keep
Yeah,
learning and keep growing, as Mr. Samuel said.
thanks so much. It was really a nice time. I really enjoyed the program, and I look forward to more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So until next time. So thank you once again for joining.